Hi, my name is Stephen Rosenberg. I am on Facebook under my name and under Stephen for Bernie Bernie for everyone. I've been posting for the campaign and involved in the campaign for Bernie Sanders since he announced he was running for the President of the United States. I want to start with a quote from a song that I love to sing. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Bob Marley. What I'm doing here is I'm inspired by a number of people who have taken to the airwaves in lieu of our mainstream corporate media and have been inspired and involved in this presidential election cycle. They have supported Bernie Sanders, but that isn't their main goal. For the most part, we are receiving our most credible news in forums such as this one. So I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of names. Claudia Stauber, who is on her way, or maybe even in Boulder, Colorado, hawking her book. The Sane Progressive, Debbie, is doing a video log similar to this one, but a little bit more refined, and she's been covering the election every which way. Of course, she's very dissatisfied with Bernie's decision to drop out. I'd like to give a shout out to Tim Black, who is inspired and very involved and connected, and a person who has been stalwart for decades in this format, but even more so on the radio, on public radio, and she basically hosts a show, Democracy Now!, which is an unrelenting forum for actual news, coverage of world events and events in our country. Her name is Amy Goodman. She is amazing. So this yesterday, I put together a more than hour-long vlog of myself testing this venue. I'm not sure that I'm great at this, but I have something to say, so I wanted to try and say it on the air. Anyway, this is the absolute first taping, which I will post on YouTube and potentially post on my pages. And I don't plan to go viral or anything like that. I just have something to say. So I've been maintaining a number of social media pages on Facebook. I have a page called Peace Watch, which is sort of for myself. I'm not sure what it is. It's a dump of memes and articles that I've placed on a page with no viewers. I'm not sure what I'm doing with that. Decades ago, I started a magazine called Peace Watch, and on that magazine was just me writing articles or unloading my information and trying to create an audience of sorts. Again, I don't know what I was trying to do then, and right now I have that page, but I do have 1,500 Facebook people who are subscribed to my Stephen for Bernie, Bernie for Everyone page, and there I posted a lot of information about the election, about Bernie Sanders, about issues that were not being covered in the mainstream corporate media, and a lot of memes. We're in an age of memes. We get our news. The most credible news sometimes is in a meme, short and sweet, but it's information that from which we can go ahead and look for articles that substantiate or discredit that information, unlike our mainstream corporate media, which seems to create one narrative for the news. The narrative is usually in support of the same corporations that control the media. Anyway, I'm not going to speak for an hour. I'll probably be speaking now for about 10 minutes. It's already been 5 minutes. And what I'm going to do in this vlog, at least for this first attempt, is just share with you some of the things I'm posting. In this case, I'm just going to share two major issues, two major protests, two important protests that are going on right now. I'm going to compare and contrast them and shine a light on both. Both are essential. And I'm just going to throw in some fodder at the same time. But today is opening day of the NFL's season, and the first thing I'd like to highlight is today's the day. Today's the day that the NFL starts its season. It's a bigger religion, seemingly, than the religions that call themselves religions. More people religiously watch the NFL games, along with other sporting events. We're still in the baseball season. We've got hockey season. We've got basketball seasons. We've got professional sports across the board, and more people watch those seemingly than attend church on Sunday or involve themselves in with their religious beliefs. So today's the day. In the preseason, a man named Colin Kaepernick, and I know I have that name wrong because I've only read the name. I've never even seen this guy play. But he's decided to peacefully protest by sitting down during the national anthem. And in so doing, he has gotten up in arms so many groups and people and patriots, so-called patriots, who are offended by his action. And he's made very clear and declarative statements about why he's doing it. Why is he doing this? Why is he sitting down during the national anthem? Well, he's sitting down because, as he would put it, the violence upon African Americans, and I think his issue is much broader, but the simple, quick version is that we have a system of institutionalized racism that supports, not opposes, but seems to support the violence upon African Americans with respect to the law. And people are being killed by police officers. African Americans are being killed by police officers in record numbers, and those people are there doesn't seem to be a response that's the ones you would expect. There doesn't seem to be support of the government opposing such a thing. There's so many facets of institutionalized racism in our country, but they seem to be more ignored than highlighted. So this one man is highlighting those. And he has, I'm not sure how many games he has protested by sitting down during the national anthem, but people have responded in numerous ways. People responded to my posts in numerous ways where it just hits a chord. I mean, God forbid someone would not stand during the national anthem, and you would think, well, you would think he was doing unspeakable things on the air against precious portions of our population who, but he's not. He's sitting down. He is sitting down during the national anthem. He refuses to acknowledge the national or honor the national anthem in that way. And I, for one, support him. I'm looking at a larger screen in front of me with a lot of different postings, but Colin Kaepernick hopefully will not give in to these pressures. I mean, people, endorsement deals have fallen through. I'm going to post on my page those endorsement deals because I think they should be boycotted. Those companies and those products that are owned by those companies should be boycotted, and because this guy, people have fought for the freedom of speech in this country, which is a primary freedom that we honor and relish in our country, our supposed freedom of speech, and people have died for this. They haven't died for to go to war. They haven't died to protect our corporations and businesses. They've died for our freedoms, and that's one very important one. And he has the right to sit down. Luckily, a number of professional athletes and athletes have also joined him. I don't know what number that is at this point, but it's growing. I was happy to post that the entire Seattle Seahawks team will protest the national anthem at opening game today. I look forward to hearing that occurs, putting a spotlight on this issue, the issue that's at hand. I hope that hundreds of NFL players choose to sit or kneel during the national anthem and point to Colin Kaepernick's courageous stand on this. So, additionally, I also posted earlier this week that he is dedicating his first $1 million of his salary to social justice organizations. This might be the greatest thing this young athlete does in his career. Not the $1 million, but that he starts a movement, a protest that highlights this horrible circumstance of our society. So, by contrast, he is getting press coverage. He's getting press coverage, and mostly negative coverage about his stance. And it's not the issues that he's discussing. It's the fact that he will not stand up for this our national anthem. They're not really discussing the issues that he is highlighting. But the mainstream corporate media and institutions are responding to this man's sit-down. I hope he has an amazing day today. I hope many, many people sit down during the national anthem. I have at times throughout my life career and younger life, not stood for the national anthem or even put my hand over my heart for the Pledge of Allegiance. Of course, no one has noticed thus far, but this man is making a statement, and I support it. By contrast to all this press coverage, there's another issue that's being highlighted, another protest, and that protest has been going on for weeks and weeks. But in the last couple of weeks, this protest has increased exponentially, and people, alternative sources of the news, Amy Goodman, TYT, the Young Turks, and others have gone and covered the protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm just going to make a note. Recently, I've been reading articles about various pipelines, and even the one that was highlighted years ago in protests. Even I participated in protests holding hands around the White House some years ago with my young son, protesting the Keystone Pipeline. And I just found out recently, I think it was through the same progressive, that the Keystone Pipeline has only been replaced at this point. There's there are other pipelines that have gone under the radar, their approval by various jurisdictions, and they have eclipsed the thousands of miles of pipeline that were slated as the Keystone Pipeline, and the way it was reported to me, or the way I heard it, was basically Keystone was a bust anyway, and it was safe for Barack Obama, the President of the United States, to basically make an executive order to put a kibosh on the Keystone Pipeline, and actually it might have even been just a veto of a bill for the Keystone Pipeline. But the pipelines exist. They're everywhere, and they're growing. But here, the issue in a place called Standing Rock in North Dakota are that the Native Americans who control that property, or that land, by treaty, I'm suspecting, those people are protesting the illegal trespass on their land by a number of companies to install a pipeline that is not approved officially, but somehow, because I'm not even sure what the jurisdiction is, but somehow they feel like they can go onto the land and desecrate the land. Not only that, but go so far as to desecrate sacred portions of the land and sacred burial grounds, which is just a slap in the face to the Native American people who control that land. And it's even more audacious that there are court orders against the people themselves who occupy the land, that they are ordered against protest on their own land. So these companies, these corporations are able to just come on to the land with mercenary companies which are doing their bidding. With no jurisdiction. It's just, it's sort of amazing. It's extraordinary, amazing, and ironically, I'm going to look at at a meme I just posted. It's a beautiful picture of Native Americans surrounding, mostly youth, surrounding Barack Obama, who is a couple of years ago, he made a statement uh, about protecting this exact piece of land. In this meme, it says, it's a retweet by Ruth Hopkins and it says, Obama came to Standing Rock and held our babies and said we deserve to be safe. Now after we are maced and mauled, White House silence is deafening. And what that means is that he was there a couple of years ago claiming to be a protector of the land. And now when things are happening to the protesters within the confines of the protest, they're breaking ground, as it were. He's nowhere to be seen. His silence is deafening. I heard that original statement. I saw a clip of Obama speaking, and I reposted that as well. I don't have it in front of me, but it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary that we are living in a time when we can just start up our computers, click on our social media, and open our news feed and see the real news almost in real time, sometimes in real time, that completely contradicts our mainstream view of how things are. Of course, the people who are victim, whether it's people in Flint, Michigan who are being poisoned, or people in various areas that were, again, poisoned by industries in their areas, or these people in Standing Rock, these Native Americans who are protesting, or people wherever injustice is being served, those people know what's going on. But the mainstream media does a perfect job of masking all of that, of not covering the victims, not covering the circumstances. So what is the victimization? So here, large equipment and machines were offloaded somewhere on sacred burial grounds. It seems like, as further a slap in the face, they seem to be starting their construction in that location, on sacred burial grounds. It's as if to say, well, not only are we going to violate your rights, not only are we going to break treaties, not only are we going to serve an illegal action, but we're going to start in an area that is most sacred, most important, and we're going to violate that space. We're going to trespass, and we're going to violate that space, and we're going to, with avarice, we're going to show you how little power you have and how much power we have. But we're going to violate your most sacred space first. So they offloaded their bulldozers, and for a time, I think those large machines, earth-moving machines, were stalled by protest. But they started up, and like I said, they just dug into the earth on sacred burial grounds. At the same time, mercenaries were brought in to protect the violators. And at one point, I watched video, and I reposted video where dogs were brought in, and they were sicked upon the protesters whose land it is, the victims of these actions. And people were bitten, and blood was drawn, and luckily it was covered. Luckily, this protest is getting bigger. There's a beautiful picture I'm looking at on my screen of these beautiful LED lit signs with people with their fists up in protest, Native Americans, and it says protectors. These people are protectors. They're not just protecting themselves and their land and their rights to their land, but they're protecting all of us. Where there's any injustice, none of us can be free. And they're protecting all of us. It's, I think, adjacent to this property is the Missouri River. The big issue here is that a number of issues. One is, in general, under the umbrella, there's the fossil fuel industry is heavily invested along with banks. The entire industry is invested in the pipeline, in fracking for supposed natural gas. And the victims are people, our water, our land, earthquakes created by these processes, pollution in the air. I mean, we're victimized every which way. If it were 20 years ago, this could not happen in this way, but our laws and protections have eroded so much by the mainstream corporations, by the oligarchy, which run these interests, run this industry and many others, that almost anything can occur with impunity. So the victims are further being victimized in this circumstance, but they're standing up. They're standing up in solidarity. I, for one, am in solidarity with these people. I'm doing what I can here, highlighting these events. I'm highlighting it right here on this vlog. But I'm also looking at, so there's a beautiful picture of protesters at twilight in front of a teepee with a beautiful sky behind them with this amazing protectors sign, with their fists up in solidarity. And then I'm looking at another posting, which are some of the other tribes. I don't know what the tribe is that's immediately located at Standing Rock, but other tribes are joining. Other members of other tribes are joining, and one beautiful picture of a canoe on the Missouri River, which is a river which is directly impacted by this pipeline. And I'm going to again make a note. The pipeline issue is like this scar upon the land, and the pollution and the environmental impact that is caused by these pipelines. I don't know how it is or why it is, but there are countless spills of natural gas that occur with respect to these pipelines. I mean, how irresponsible is it to build a pipeline that is susceptible to whatever degradation that would cause the pipeline to offer spill? And these spills occur in the hundreds and thousands of gallons. They don't occur, it's not a little oil spill. or gas spill. It's a humongous, many thousands of gallons of oil that are leach into the ground and affect those water tables that are adjacent. And this is happening all over in ways that we can't even start to imagine. And we're just building more of these pipelines and pumping more oil and fracking, which I haven't really talked about, but fracking is like, it's across the board. Say no to fracking. There is no safe way to frack in order to extract this natural gas from the ground, especially in areas where populations exist. We're used to thinking that oil just comes from the Gulf of Mexico. And again, I mean, the environmental impact of oil wells in the Gulf of Mexico are beyond alarming. But we think it's far away and it won't affect us. But we've not only impacted negatively our environment far away, but we have brought it right close to home through fracking. And we have farmlands, people, towns, cities, populations that are utterly affected deleteriously by fracking. And yet we continue, if not accelerate, the process. I can't even believe that in the mid 90s or 2000, whatever, whenever I saw my first commercial about the clean fuel alternative of natural gas, and I'm thinking, whatever. I listen to it. I go, of course they're going to get cleaner alternative fuels, better ways of extraction, but it's gone in the exact opposite direction. It's more disgusting than ever when there was no restriction on oil drilling and however we extract our fossil fuels. There were more restraints on the fossil fuels. They've created laws that allow more and more and more and more and protect us less and less and less and less. And it's disgusting. And it only serves a very small group of people. And that's the 1%. That's the oligarchy. Those are the heads of the fossil fuel industry, which is connected to so many other nefarious industries that don't help us. So here we are in protest, and this is my take on it. I'm going to continue to offer to people postings of articles and memes and opinions that shine a light on how the true nature of how things are. And I'm inspired because of so many who have been doing it before me, who have been watchdogs and reported, and in the past I've been willing to put my head in the sand. I've been willing to sort of wish away and hope away any evidence that things aren't going well. Things aren't going in the right direction. Because I really believe that people who run for office are doing so to help us, to protect our rights, to create a better world for us. And even when I would protest a specific issue or be concerned about a specific industry or whatever, I would sort of think that's an isolated event. What I'm realizing is that it's not an isolated event. It's across the board uh, oligarchy and protection of corporations and industries that is occurring in our country. We, as individual citizens, in our supposed democracy, with our Constitution, are protected less and less by our laws and by our Constitution. And we are losing in this. We are not being represented by those who serve. So they're there serving, they're there working, they're there. Those our elected representatives are working hard as advocates, but they're advocating for corporations, industries, and the oligarchy. And that's just the way it is. And so I pulled my head out of the sand sometime a year ago, last spring, or before, and it was when one courageous person, who's been saying it all along, decided to run for president of the United States, and all of a sudden, without reserve, without hesitation, he was speaking the truth to us. And that truth is that there is an oligarchy, that there is a 1%. He was giving us real numbers that substantiated our ideas that people I want to have a good term for this, but people stepped around. People have always complained or have always claimed that they're be an agent for change, but they didn't fully describe what that change would include. And here, there's a person who stood up and said he's not just for change, or he's not going to change things for the better. He's going to change things for the way they should be. And he's going to work toward that, as he has for 40 plus, if not 50 years in public service. So Bernie Sanders is saying that what we're doing to the environment is horrendous and it should stop, that we should protect our environment, that we, as long as we abuse our environment in the way we are, and a symptom of that is global warming, we are actually creating circumstances for unrest. And that unrest is highlighted in countries like Syria and Iraq and Iran and the entire Middle East and Korea and places in Africa and the United States and places close to us and far away, because it is not good for our world, our society, our economy. It's not good for anything or anybody. But it is occurring. So without equivocation, he's saying that global warming exists, that we as humans are affecting our Earth, and the evidence is growing every single day. But the evidence is just the evidence. It's been happening. People have had evidence all along. It's just that the evidence is coming to us, and potentially, primarily through social media. So here we are. We're looking at fracking, just one nefarious industry, um, where we're paying the ultimate price. We're paying with our drinking water. We're paying with our land. We're paying with our environment. We're, and its negative effects are so transparent and clear. So in the state of Missouri, I think they had 900 or seismic events, where previously they had in the last year. Previously they had two historic earthquakes in their state. And here we are, we're going, I wonder if fracking is affecting us in a negative way. Of course we want to do safe fracking. Well, it's unsafe to create a situation where there are earthquakes. And in a global perspective, we have more hurricanes of greater magnitude that we've created. We have more typhoons and seismic events, not just from fracking, but from the ecological degradation that we have caused. We have bigger storms with bigger effect, more costly from an economic standpoint. We have had tsunamis all around the world, of greater and greater magnitude, and which have displaced people and caused countless dollars in damage, again, around the world. And we have caused that. The evidence is just mounting. We have weather patterns that are less and less predictable, except that the only prediction we can make is that they're bigger and much worse, and they're occurring in areas where we didn't even have history of those events. So we're having earthquakes in places where there weren't earthquakes. We're having various types of storms where we weren't having those types of storms, or they were of less magnitude and lesser frequency. So here we are. This is the true nature of our circumstance, and we had a presidential candidate stand up and tell us that this is the case. He's telling us that there's an oligarchy, and he showed us the evidence without equivocation. He is not being paid for by any of these interests, and he's telling us that we have an electoral system that is corrupt, and it's a pay-to-play system. We always knew that system existed, but it's more and more and more prevalent in every decision that's being made. So in the past, there's the illusion that these people were working for us, and even actions that were taken showed that they were working for us. But as the influence peddling and influence of major corporations and industries is more pervasive by the erosion of our protections in that area, more and more laws are written for the few, for the profitization of a few. We have an oligarchy that controls our world. We have fewer companies and fewer people controlling those companies that control more of our banks, our savings and loans, various industries, our entire mainstream corporate media, which is controlled by 6 major corporations, really maybe 4 corporations, whereas in 1983 there were 50 corporations that controlled our media. We have privatized so many different industries, including ones that should I would say that most of them should never be privatized, because profit for medical care, profit for privatization of our prison industrial complex means that there's an incentive to imprison people. So we've quintupled the population in prison in 35 years. We've barely added a percentage of our population, and we've barely lowered our crime rates as a result. Most of the people that have gone into prison have been people for victimless, or charged with and with a victimless crime like possession of illegal drugs, and a disproportionate number, and this is part of the systemic racism, have been people of color, people who are minorities in our country, a growing minority that will soon surpass our supposed white majority. So anyway, I'm waning. It's 47 minutes. I didn't think I would go this long. Not even sure I'm going to repost this. I'll listen to it. But those are the highlights of what I am posting on my social media. The amazing thing about all of this is that we are able to see what it is. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but we're able to actually see what is going on. I'm looking at a picture of Amy Goodman, who has been at it for so long. I remember the first time I saw her at a protest, and she was reporting on that same protest, and I'm not even sure what the protest was, but I saw her under cover of a sort of a tent, one of these 10 by 10 tents, and I was thinking, wow, that person is all business. She's been reporting on this in unbelievable fashion. For decades, and she's been utterly dedicated to this pursuit. It's not always easy to hear her news segments because she is unceasing. There's no fluff. There's no break. It is her reporting the news that oftentimes nobody is reporting. So it is a hard pill to swallow because it doesn't make you feel good unless you let go and let that information in. Do what you can. I guess it's like the Serenity Prayer of many 12-step programs. You decide what role to take, and it's and where you can respond and where you can't respond. But the sanity that comes with knowing that all the things that point to injustice that come subtly through our society that don't seem to jibe, that don't seem to be make sense, are actually substantiated by real events. So the rich getting richer, the oligarchy, the establishment of the oligarchy, the people having a harder time in our world actually is occurring. It's not just a few. It's actually occurring, and it's occurring more frequently, and it's occurring to more and more of our population. There was a better time, and that better time was a time when we were acknowledging our injustices in our society, and we were reacting in a positive way to those through court decisions, through legislation, through dedication, through actions. Now we're in free fall, and that free fall has been created by the oligarchy, and that oligarchy serves a small percentage of our population who, I'm not sure how to characterize these people. I don't believe they're evil. I believe that they are truly believing that somehow the goal is to have more and more power at the expense of others. That their goal is to have more and more and more and more. I'm not even sure how to, maybe it's pure capitalism, where you just, I don't know, create more wealth and have more wealth. I'm not even sure how to substantiate it, because in saying it sounds asinine and beyond greedy, and I'm not even sure. I'm not sure what the motivations of the Walton family, who are, four siblings who have each more wealth than entire countries, and it's growing, and it's supplemented by our taxes, and if they can get away with it, they're supposed to somehow get away with it. And so Walmart, the business practices of Walmart are to be placed upon some type of pedestal as amazing, because they were able to do it, and they continue to do it, and they coalesce their power so that they can do it more and more and more. And what's funny is that it goes in every direction. Labor is highlighted in protests, but their behavior and their business practices with respect to small businesses, competing businesses, businesses that are their subcontractors who create their widgets and whatnots to, those, everybody's squeezed. The local jurisdiction, the government, sales tax, welfare, food stamps, everybody in every direction is squeezed by Walmart and companies like Walmart. Of course, Walmart's the biggest, so it's easy to target them, but anybody who has those similar business practices, it's all about how to make the most money and leverage all aspects of the business. And instead of honoring labor, honoring the products that you sell, honoring the companies that provide them, honoring the jurisdictions in which you do business, everything is an exploit. Everything is how do we make more and more and more money off of every aspect of our business. So here's another hour. I think it's a better hour, but maybe a less focused hour. So anyway, this is my first video. I might make another first video because I really intended to make a short video to cover a couple of topics, but it is good to work these things out and in a way that's engaged. So I'm going to leave you with that same quote by Bob Marley from the song Redemption Song. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. It's worth repeating. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Thank you.